Have you ever wondered how fasting can actually help to regulate the hormones that we have in our body? If so, you're in the right place, because welcome to episode 9 of Fun Facts About Fasting. So, outside of my main interest in research, which is immunology, I'm fascinated with endocrinology and biochemistry. But more importantly, I'm very fascinated with how what we eat, what we drink, what we exercise or not exercise, the information we take in, our actions, our experiences affects our body. Now, there's a whole host of information about how it affects our gene expression, the whole notion of epigenetics. But in this episode, I'm going to be talking about how does it affect our endocrinology system. So, more importantly, our hormones. We have many fascinating hormones that are very integral for many different aspects. And I'm here today to talk about what happens when they are abnormal in terms of the level. Sometimes they're too low or they're too high. And how does fasting help to potentially regulate some of these hormones in an attempt to correct our body's kind of biochemistry where possible to put us back to maybe in a healthy state in terms of our hormone levels? So let's go into some of these hormones and then we can take it from there. Is that okay? So what I want to stress first of all is that we naturally have fluctuating hormone levels as we grow older, men and female. We have increases and decreases of many hormones as we grow on with life, and that's fine, and that's kind of normal physiological processes. But sometimes there is abnormal or chronic changes in our hormone levels that can be at a detriment to us. It can be quite harmful to us. It can change the way we are over time, and sometimes it can lead to many more problems. And I'm going to talk about some of those hormones today. Some of them I've already talked about in the episode so far, but some of them I want to be talking about today in this episode 9. So as you can see on the left here, we've got a list of very key and common but very important hormones in our body. You've heard me talk about insulin, that's over there. We have human growth hormone, we've got cortisol, serotonin, dopamine, and even noradrenaline. These are very key hormones for a variety of functions. And the reason why it's in this theme of looking at our brain and our mind, our pituitary gland is very integral in looking at hormones. So, which is why I situated this video in this week's theme. So let's go into what happens with these potential hormones. Now, you should already know if you've been watching the series so far. I hope you have. If you haven't, please do subscribe so don't miss out the rest of the 21 episodes coming out. Here we talk about insulin, and we know that its abnormal level is when insulin is too high chronically for a long period of time. And we already talked about how fasting can actually help to regulate this particular hormone. So it doesn't damage the rest of the body, gives this pancreas a rest, as I mentioned before, and it actually gives the brain a rest, as we mentioned in the Alzheimer's episode yesterday. But what about human growth hormone? We know that this hormone is very integral in regulating body composition, body fluids, very integral in muscle mass integrity and longevity, but it's actually very integral in the cell renewal process. And over time, as I mentioned before, that level of this particular hormone decreases over time, and fasting can actually help to boost it back up again in a level that's really optimal and really useful and beneficial for our body. Now, serotonin is actually very integral for our mood, our appetite, our digestion. It's actually a precursor for the hormone melatonin, which is our sleep promoting hormone. So it's actually very integral in our sleep cycle. And we know when this hormone is at an abnormally low level over time, it can lead to many complications within the brain and the mind. And it can lead to all sorts of actually physiological functions, which is why there's medications to try and treat or bring in more serotonin back up into the brain. You might have heard of SSRI, serotonin selective reuptake inhibitors. But fasting has also been shown to try and boost that level back up again, which is also really integral. So you see this theme of regulating the hormones back up again with the uses of bouts of fasting if done properly. Now with dopamine, we know dopamine is kind of that feel-good hormone, but many people remember it from the kind of negative sense, which is that whenever you see any type of addiction, it's that dopamine fix, it's that dopamine high. But dopamine is also a really good hormone on its own if you take it away from this kind of addictive or addiction-based discussion. And also fasting, especially when you're kind of breaking your fast, it releases bouts of dopamine as well. And I've got letters in the description box. Letters? Did I say letters? Research articles in the description box below that might help you in terms of the mechanism as to how this actually occurs. Now, cortisol gets a bad rep because a lot of people say it's a stress-related hormone. It causes all sorts of complications within our body. But that isn't true, because just like insulin, they're both very key hormones. They're not bad hormones, but if it's in high amounts for a long period of time, it can cause complications. Now, cortisol is very important in regulating blood sugar, regulating metabolism, decreasing inflammation, and even helping with memory formulation. And fasting has been shown to help regulate this hormone where possible as well. Again, as I said before, descriptions of this research and the research around these hormones are in the description box below. And lastly, with noradrenaline, it's very integral in pumping more blood around the body, breaking down more fats and more sugars to give ourselves more energy potential to utilize, increasing our heart rate in a beneficial manner, because it's seen with that fight and flight hormone type of scenario. Now, fasting actually helps to boost this hormone in particular to beneficially increase our metabolism, so we start to burn fats because we don't want to have too much storage and too much weight gain in our body. So fasting actually helps to regulate or even boost this particular hormone in question. So as I mentioned at the start of the video, hormones are very integral in our function, and if it's left unchecked, if it isn't well looked after and tolerated and maintained, it can lead to all sorts of problems. If insulin is too high, cortisol is too high, serotonin and dopamine are too low, noradrenaline is dangerously too low. Fasting can actually help to regulate these hormones in particular. And that's why I think fasting, if it's subtly introduced where possible, it doesn't have to be. This is not a mandated thing. Can actually help to regulate a lot of things in our body. And I think a lot of people, we do this actually without realizing. And when we sleep, we are fasting. When we maybe skip a meal, we are fasting. So I think giving the body a break from food that's coming in and drinks that's coming in, and also more importantly, stuff that we mentioned in the first episode about fasting beyond food. I think that's also really important as well, to say let's limit ourselves or reduce ourselves in terms of certain actions and events and indulgences. That can also help our mind. So today was just a little video to give you a little overview. I know I've probably gone over 5 minutes again today. I will try to keep it back to 5 minutes if I can. But just a little bit of an overview as to how hormone levels are very crucial for our body and how fasting can provide some benefit in regulating them. So any research articles I've used are in the description box below. But I hope to see you tomorrow for episode 10. Can you believe it? We're now a third of the way in this series. See you then. Take care.